All right, I think we're ready to begin. Hey everyone, I'm Graham Henshaw. Welcome to the Hub. We are excited to welcome Pip Decker today. He brings a really unique perspective from two sides of a very important topic. He's going to talk about his background in clean energy generation and also electric vehicle ecosystems, I think you could call it. He's the co-founder and CEO of Current. They help companies transition their fleets with turnkey electric vehicle solutions, both from buying the actual infrastructure themselves to then figuring out charging and then operations, the whole thing, soup to nuts. Earlier in his career, Pip co-founded BMR Energy, which was later acquired by Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Group. I think that's the first time I've ever shared something like that in an acquisition story, so that's pretty cool. And after the BMR adventure, he founded Sun East, a leading solar developer on the East Coast. Pip's a William & Mary alum. He's got a degree in public policy. And he also happens to own or hold a Class A CDL license. So I was really hoping he was going to pull up in a really big truck right out front. But he could do that if he wanted to. Today's talk is going to highlight three things that I want you to have an ear out for. And I also want you to see if you can map these takeaways onto any of the entrepreneurial thinking pillars that we have at the Hub. So he's going to highlight this notion of being prone to action, the ability to go the full distance, and then the importance of bringing a team around you. So be on the lookout for those and look at the entrepreneurial thinking pillars as well. Please join me in welcoming Pip Decker.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon. I'm gonna have pizza for you guys afterwards, if you want to stay around. My name is Pip Decker, and I really want you guys to take away something for real today, which is I have a public policy background, William & Mary, but I did a lot of other things that I thought were kind of impossible. The other thing I want you to take away is that this school is hard. Like, grades are hard to come by. I didn't have 3.0, 2.93. That was it. But what William & Mary taught me was the grind, staying humble, staying creative, and understanding that y'all are elite. Just remember that when you go out into this world, people are going to look to you. They're going to look to you to be a leader. They're going to look to you to be a creator, and we need you guys to take on hard topics and hard projects. Do that. I'm telling you, you're going to have an awesome career in life. Like, I couldn't be happier being here today. 21 years ago on a Friday, I used to get coffee. I would go to like one of the coffee shops just down on Dog Street and just dream on what I wanted to do. And I'll tell you my story about how I got there in the next hour. But just remember that all the things that you guys are striving for, find them and go get it. Because nothing is going to stop you. Nothing's going to get in your way. It's going to be a fun adventure. And for him and their team, like, this is great. This is something I didn't have. I didn't have people coming to me saying this is possible. I had to go get it. And so this is really one of the best things about this school is coming back home and telling the story. So yeah, hit the QR link or whatever. So I've done some really great things in my career. You know, CEO, but really I'm a project team member. That's how I think about myself. Think about great leaders out there. What do? They usually have a lot. They usually understand who they're doing it for. These are my kids. Over the summer, we took them out to the Grand Canyon. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment. I didn't have the resources to do what my kids have, but I can now show them Grand Canyon with my eyes on them. And sometimes when you're thinking about projects and business ideas, and I'm sure you guys have them, so you're looking out at some opportunity with awe. You're like, God damn, how am I going to get there? Like, this thing is so vast, this thing is so big, I can't actually tackle it. The answer is you can. The big thing is the why. If you look up in the sky on this photo, there's smoke in the air, and these are the wildfires. You had 1,200 firefighters this summer trying to put out the flames of climate change. Climate change is real. And I can tell you, I've seen it firsthand in the Caribbean, and I'll go into that. But the big thing for me was the why. I had someone or something that was driving me. Before I had children, I had this vision of just going out there and trying to make an impact on my own. I didn't have an engineering degree. I didn't have a civil background, but I got into the wind development business because I cold called. I didn't take no. When I called people, I said, how do I get a job in the wind industry? And they said, man, you got an engineering degree? I said, I don't. And I interviewed with someone and I remember saying, hey man, you're not hiring me. Who's your competitor? Who is the person that keeps you up at night? And they wrote down Noble Environmental Power. And I called them. And I called their offices and the remote office, never call their headquarters because you won't get anyone. You gotta call a remote office and say, hey, I wanna come work for you. And they said, you got any land? And I said, I'll find you some. And so I was living in the West Village at the time. I was 22 years old. I had a girlfriend. Life was great. Like I had a job. I was kind of working at a nonprofit, but this thing called to me so badly that I moved to upstate New York. I lived in a field basically for 6 years. I was signing landowners, and we put up some of the first wind farms in this country in 2005, 20 years ago. That's when I started. I did it because I picked up the phone. A lot of people actually reached out to me on LinkedIn ahead of time, and I appreciate you. Like that is what it takes. Saying hello. The ability to pick up the phone and go meet someone not behind a screen, face to face. You can generate business and opportunity on that. Like that is a key creator, and that is one of the keys to my success. The digital world has an adventure, but the physical one has one too. Very few people will pick up the phone. Even fewer people will go up there and go get it. So when I think about my why, got my kids. Behind that is my wife. Best entrepreneurs, got a partner. You can have a co-founder, you can have a wife, you gotta have someone that's gonna ride with you. I got better when I got married. I got even better when I had children. Go into that too. So this is what we want. We want the result. We want the money, we want the fame, we want all that. Richard Branson, my hero. My dad worked at Forbes magazine. And he brought home cover of Forbes every week. And he would talk about success. And he said, man, you need one of these people one day to make it happen. And one day this guy bought my business that I created. I went down to Jamaica on spec. My wife was pregnant. I had no revenue to do this other than the desire to make it happen. I was developing wind farms at the time, and I just felt like I wanted to go conquer this thing. This is what we want. We want the result. The hard part is really saying, I'm gonna come back, is getting there. The hard part is doing the work and the detail. Gotta want the grind, gotta want the detail. Y'all want to have that great moment, it will come. I didn't know Richard was going to show up and shake my hand at that moment to change my life. I just believed that if I had a great project, it was going to happen. I knew someone was going to come. One point to it, but gosh darn, I was going to deliver it. I went to Jamaica 154 times in 2.5 years to get it done. I had dinner with the CEO, JetBlue. They emailed me and they said, hey, we want to have a dinner for the highest flyers in the country. When I sat down, they said, hey, Pip, I thought you'd be Jamaican. I said, Wagwan. When I think about the difficulties that you all face, what I want you to understand is that these seem like really insurmountable tasks, but they aren't. They're day to day. I had 154 easements I had to secure from families in Jamaica to get wind turbine blades to the top of a very big hill. That hill. So that's me down in the corner. See up there at the top of a wind farm. To get here, you got to get low. You got to understand how you're going to get there and be creative. There was no way I was going to find windmills big enough that could generate enough cash flow to generate returns that would bring someone in like Richard without bringing in hard technology. So what did we do? Found a way. I figured out how to get turbine blades shuttled around the south coast of Jamaica. I worked with the bauxite refinery And we convinced everyone that we could get technology that was impossible, technology that my manufacturers would not sell me until I showed them there was a path. And we did it. Super hard. The other thing is time pressure. You all are working on time pressure, and this is tough. Like, you don't have to be here, but I appreciate you coming here. Time pressure is obviously very real in college, very real in life. And how you manage that time pressure is the key. Do not grip the stick as hard as you want to, just let it fly. You gotta trust your team. You gotta trust the people that say, hey man, I'm gonna feed you the pass, tap it in. But that's only if you have the reps and the knowledge and the skills to understand how to execute. And that's just gonna take reps. Right? They say 10,000 hours. Oh, it's hard. Right? How do you get great at something? You just do the reps and you keep going. Having that baseline and foundational understanding is key. So those are some of the pieces that you think about. How hard is it to get a windmill at the top of the highest mountain in Jamaica? I can tell you how hard it is. It's tough. But when it is done, when it's operational, you bring your kids, show them your projects, show them. Because this is exciting. We are working on technology that needs no subsidies. This wind farm here in Jamaica didn't need a federal tax credit, didn't need federal policy. The only thing it needed to do was perform and generate power. Because in Jamaica, we were 25% cheaper cost to operate and sell power to residents of the country. Project powers 4% of the country every day and has for the last 8 years. Only 11 windmills to power 4% of the country. It's pretty good, right? Good tech. The biggest piece here is the fear of doing nothing. Don't freeze. Do something. Do it early. Don't wait. Do not say, I got to go get that next thing and I'm going to start that thing. Start that thing now. Grind on it a little bit. Along the way, someone's going to catch you. You're going to get brought into the updraft. Get close to the action. My dad brought me to the edge of the ring. When it's so close, you just want to jump in there and get it. But in that ring, it is tough. It is so hard. There are things that will break you, that you cannot break. That's what this school will teach you. And this is one of my favorite quotes from a guy who was more successful. And he said, it was when I started really running towards it that I found success. For 10 years, he was running away from something. And you all may have that. Find that thing to run towards. If it's your fear, go hit it. Do not turn around. Because that fear will break you over time. But you got to hit the stuff head on. And stuff will break, that's no doubt. But did you ever have a chance to hit something head on and be direct? Do it. That to me is entrepreneurship. That to me is finding a way. That to me is understanding exactly where you are in that moment with that time pressure and having the chance to say, no, I believe that we could do this. This project almost didn't happen. And I wouldn't be here telling the story. I'd probably tell you another story for sure. Great. But the ability to say, hang on. That is your task as you guys think about your careers here. And I hope you think about bringing people along with you because you can't do it alone. I brought my son to a project that was completed. I didn't bring him before, never tried to jinx projects, before they happen, right? But think about it as if you made that shot, as if you made that goal, you scored that touchdown. In your mind, you've done it. Now you got to work your way back. Don't tell anyone about it. Just go get it. And at the end, you're going to have that moment that will change your life. It can be monetary, it can be emotional, it can be all of it. It doesn't have to be something that's far away or remote. The good news today is that y'all have more tools at your disposal than ever before. You have the entrepreneurship hub here. When I started, I had a Wi-Fi card, I had LegalZoom, and I had Dropbox. That was my hustle, for real. And I started businesses on my kitchen table, and I turned them to multi-million-dollar businesses, which is so damn exciting. It's like, wow, I'm going to do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You got to try early. And now you guys have AI tools and all that. Like, that's exciting. That can accelerate your footprint across this country faster, provided you define exactly what it is. So you all need to figure out your why. You want it, find it, then you can go get it. I'm going to jump to something else here in a second, but just want to talk about the clean energy adventure that's going on. and kind of where I started and where I'm going. Because y'all can't rest, and neither can I. You can sit back and say, I hit it, but that's only so good. Long time ago, I'm gonna go back to this slide. Well, let's see. Richard Branson of the Entrepreneurial. The chief investment officer of Virgin suddenly passed away. And it was hard for me because he took a risk on me and I wanted. And what he said was, he didn't stop. Got killed. And sometimes someone will call to you and tell you there's a new adventure out there. And there are things that are out there that are in your mind that you have to go do, but sometimes they're not yet. Sometimes the time's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But my wife gave birth to my third child, and she said it's time to come home. And I had to end this adventure. So who would ever raise their hand and say, Richard Branson is my boss, why would I do anything else? And then leave? Who would do that? So sometimes you got to listen to your teammates and your true partners to follow that next adventure. And I started a business called Current. We're young and we have trouble. It ain't perfect and it ain't a straight line. But you've got to listen to the things that call you, and different things in your life will call you. Biggest thing that I've learned is that as it calls you, you got to respond to it in kind. You got to answer that. I knew my adventure written in Latin America with BMR had come to an end when I saw two guys in Haiti working on rooftop solar installation. 20 years ago, putting up windmills, crazy. It was just not happening, right? They said they're killing birds. And so we studied the birds. I found teams of students, just like you, to count dead birds in Jamaica. And we did post-construction avian mortality surveys. And we trained a group of children who became educational environmental leaders in Jamaica about exactly the environmental impacts of it. Go to the data, go to the source, don't rely on the headlines, get into this, right? Get into what you are doing. BMR was unbelievable, but as we've been developing renewable projects globally, the impact of doing what I was doing was there. These two gentlemen in Haiti were putting solar on their roof for necessity. They had nothing. They had no power, no water. It's a hard place to work, friends, and it's gotten harder ever since, and I pray for them. But I knew it was time, the next adventure. 10 years ago, I put deposits on Tesla semi trucks. I screenshotted it, sent to my business partner, Dana. I said, one day, you gotta go get it. When my wife told me that operated, time to come home, she said, it's time to go get it. And that was it. That's all I needed. So I started Current really from a seed that had been incubating in my mind. It had been a place where I could feel safe in my conversations to say something's coming, something's big. You never know if you're going to fail on some of this, and we don't know how Current will turn out, but that's okay. Got to get paid, right? And that to me is the most exciting part, is to live, fight another day, and keep your head about yourself, to always be humble. The best part about this school is that the humbleness is there. There ain't no bragging here. But look what has happened to the alumni of this school. Mike Tomlin, right? Steelers. We got our boys up in Buffalo. There's so many alum to count. These guys are thought leaders on the field. They're teaching their team to grow and chase the ultimate championship in the Super Bowl. We do the same thing here with entrepreneurship and business. These are fun adventures. These are exciting. There's going to be losses. You win a little bit more, you're champion. You're going to lose along the way. It's going to suck. I'm telling you that. But you want to head towards a result for a lot of reasons. But you should really just think about the why. The next leg up, thinking about that next adventure, thinking about enabling people, being part of a team. You can't do it alone. There is no I. You can be a leader, but you got to be a cultivator at the same time. How do you throw a touchdown and catch a pass all at the same time? It's not going to happen, right? I have a team of 16 people. that we do really fantastic things on the energy transition side for transportation. I felt like my impact on developing wind and solar projects had been smart over 20 years, and I was at my prime, at my top. I've done all the hard projects. I needed to go into another space to make things less scary. As an entrepreneur, you got to do that too. You got to define fear and take fear away from it. Create an investable climate to make other people want to come in and do this thing. That's how you create a market. You get other players in, you raise each other up. There's collaboration. This game is hard enough for everybody. Right now, obviously, there's federal policy, EV tax credits are going away. Whatever. Everyone want to drive a Tesla? Anyone drive an EV vehicle? Like, they're awesome. They're a great product. And so long as the product is there, that's good. You should have a market and you should have a customer. So Current is really that. It's really trying to be that bridge, to be that safe space for people to say, we want to do something about electrification. Choose us as a charging partner, choose us as an infrastructure provider, and to really make that move. There will be a video here that we're going to show that I've produced that'll show you kind of how we think about that space. But the key piece for me, I think I've shared, is my experience will be yours. I got to come back in just 1 second. Right. We never forgot where we came from, boys. All right. Still fits, it's still smelly. So this is my hockey jersey from William & Mary. It's all about a team. I got 16 on my roster. Got 16 players here. When I was at school, I was assistant captain, and I even got paid to play because I refereed at night for floor hockey. I made like $13 a week, and I thought I was like the richest guy in the world. So just don't forget where you came from, right? You got to stay humble in this thing. And to me, this is what it's all about. Like, you're always gonna have a chance to come home. You're always gonna be welcomed. So the big thing is, why wouldn't you want to go out there and tackle something super hard? Define what it is, stretch your limits and push it. Like, to me, that's really exciting. So if my co-captain's watching Austin, we had a really tough time with hockey here way back. And I don't know if you know anyone on the hockey team, they're doing pretty well right now, which is awesome. Yeah, so, and they'll probably kick our butt if like we went out and skated today, which is great. But that's growth, right? That's, to me, success. William Mary Tribe's team's doing well. Someone had to be the leader there to do this, and someone had to take the torch and pass it, right? And so that, to me, is like the exciting piece of this journey. Is like, how do you become a leader where you say, hey, I got the next person up. I'm going to help them be that captain, be that assistant captain. I can't be here forever, but I will be back, and I am supporting you from afar. In Jamaica, they had this great saying, away, not gone. Away, not gone. When I left, it was hard because I had 20 employees down. When I hired construction workers, 90% of the people that built my wind farm were local. I went out and I recruited them. And the same thing here with Current. I have a lot of veterans, the Navy, Marines, Army. Never forget about people that have done hard work elsewhere. And we know that they're capable to do this. Leadership is what comes from the school, and leadership is what really entrepreneurship is about. There's no quiz on the next thing, but I do want to help you think about the detail of what I think about in terms of next legs of the future and how we define them. I should probably stop here and maybe open it up for questions or comments, but y'all are here on a Friday at noon, and I appreciate you guys coming. And I'm gonna have you turn this on, but the next slide here is a video. Let's see, or let's see how do we do this one.
For businesses today, sustainability isn't just a goal, it's a necessity. To achieve it, understanding emissions is crucial. We are Current, your partner in going green. Until recently, most companies only measured emissions from their own operations. But what about the emissions a company is responsible for outside of its own walls, from the raw materials it purchases to the delivery of its final products. Many companies are unaware of the full extent of their emissions, which are categorized into 3 types: Scope 1, 2, and 3. Let's start with Scope 1 emissions. These are direct emissions from owned or controlled sources. When a company invests in logistics, the vehicles they use to transport goods emit pollution and greenhouse gases. At Current, we eliminate Scope 1 emissions and support cleaner air and healthier communities by providing electric vehicles and chargers. Next, we have Scope 2 emissions, which are indirect emissions from the generation of electricity a company purchases. When a company pays its electric bill, it doesn't control the power plant, but it's still accountable for the emissions created to keep the lights on, keep the air conditioners running, and power the servers that support their operations. Current offers companies an easy transition to renewable energy sources like solar and wind. Finally, Scope 3 emissions cover all other indirect emissions that occur in a company's value chain. For example, a company's employees who work in the office every day. The emissions from the cars, buses, and trains they use during their commute fall under the category of Scope 3. Current works across the private and public sector to give commuters the option of a sustainable ride to and from work, including electric buses. At Current, our mission is to lead the transition to a sustainable future. We offer businesses a comprehensive assessment of their full scope emissions and solutions to reduce them. Together, we can take on Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Join us in driving green forward. Learn more about how Current can help your company achieve its sustainability objectives.
Scope emissions is a way we define a market product. Scope emissions have 1, 2, and 3 classes of how you consume things. Understanding why. Where does my electricity come from? That's a good question. My goal was supported with renewable power generation. Scope 3 emissions are the indirect, right? How does the pizza get here? Was it delivered sustainably? We can provide a product and solution around that. Why do the products that arrive at our tables, why do they come here? And where do they come from? Who provided them? Inside that detail is the market. Inside that are your customers. Right there, put some hustle on. Ready? How much do you think it cost me to produce that video? That's pretty good, right? $1,000. You know the voice in that video? My wife. Still got that hustle. Right? I'm not outsourcing any of this. I don't need $25,000 production. We have drones, we have friends, and we have people that believe. We're entrepreneurs. But we are trying to create a larger, broader market. Over COVID, everyone was involved in the business world. Because now you were behind the screen. You could interface with huge companies all from your home, and they took you seriously. That was an entrepreneurial moment. That was something that we took advantage of when I stood Current up. We knew, or I knew, we were all equal. Think about that. The other piece is quality is key to feeling like you have the edge to close something. That you are not small. We're 16 people, but we've got great projects all across the country. It's really fun. And teaching your team to feel like they've got the capability and capacity to tackle big things on a small budget is that entrepreneurial mindset. So some of you guys will run really large companies one day, no doubt. Some of you will have amazing teams that, you will take to the Super Bowl, right? Like there's gotta be another Mike Tomlin here, right? Like, let's go. So to me, that's super exciting. So defining how you can be effective inside that organization, small or big, is going to be your entrepreneurial lens, right? Understanding kind of the keys and movers. How can we do more with less? How can we use our team and the tools that are available to us out in this world to amplify our existing roster? It's not about getting on some rocket ship to the land where everyone's super capable. Doesn't happen. You got to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of your players as you build teams and of yourself, which is the hardest part, right? William Mary has a really great way of making you feel like I can't get ahead on my own thing, not worrying about everybody else's stuff. It's about yourself. That was the best thing for me. It was, so hard. I had to up my game. So I went to the public library here and I read about Steve Jobs. I read about all the greats that could make it happen in the spare time here. I would sit in on classes that I liked, that I wanted to be part of. And that was my key to this school and our relationship and my success and what I've done professionally. Is that ability to feel like you can foster it here and do something. That was just so exciting. And I hope you all can take that with you today and make a similar impact. There's no doubt that everyone in this room is going to do something cool. The big piece is just finding that edge. How far can you guys take it to the edge without blowing an edge in mind, as I would say, right? Crashing into that wall. The beauty is in that game. The beauty is in making it look effortless. Like it should be there all along. Electric vehicles, I would think people would look back at it and say it was a no-doubter. Windmills, renewables, fewer moving parts, no doubter. The greatest economic thesis that you could have ever invested in was no moving parts. Just invest in things that have no moving parts because everything else has maintenance. Over time, lower maintenance is going to win. So if you invested in Apple, they took out spinning discs, they took out Walkmans, they took them all out. They made wonderful products as a result. I always try to think about markets that I can serve that should be a no-doubter on the backside. Question is, do you have the willingness to endure and the capacity and the why to go through how hard this can be to get to the other side? But I am telling you, on the other side are things that you cannot believe. They're so exciting on the backside. You feel like you made it while you're making it. And that to me is really exciting. And I appreciate Graham letting me come here to speak, but just never forget where you came from, right here, right? That's it. So thank you for your time. Here for questions and here for you all. But keep going on your journey, whatever it is. Thank you.
So I'm going to be throwing the mic at you if you have a question. So please.
To us or at us?
Your choice.
That.
At you. To you.
Nice catch.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for being here. I'm actually an alum of the college, and I just have a question about how what does the expected projection look like for dealing with climate change as far as transportation of items from place to place, and how we can get them there conveniently without expending on climate change.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Might be two parts, right? So going back to the understanding where does it come from, right? Where does the fuel to power these vehicles come from? Big one, the takeaway is look at how much power, how many renewable resources by capacity that would put online. The amount of new renewables that have come online is critical in understanding like the displacement of transportation for EV, right? So when we think about like what's our net impact, the net impact is the input of renewables and power. If you look at different capacity maps and different system operators in the United States, we are cleaning up the grid at an exponential rate so fast that you can now say, hey, we can bundle our renewable resources with electric vehicles and then make that impact. The good news is, as much as we might feel in this moment that we're not doing a lot, 1 in 4 vehicles globally being produced today are electric. So that's encouraging to say, hey, look, if we're just average as a country, 25% of our vehicles will be electric. The question is how many renewable megawatts are being put on grid to power those vehicles? The answer is way more than we think. I'm very optimistic about existing generation capacity and future generation capacity, just because the Jamaica case is key. We did it with no subsidies. We did it just going straight against the power, and we were fighting against HFO and other thermal users to displace them in an economical way, unsubsidized. So we're going to hit what we think is called market parity. Parity is basically the key unlocking, an exponential explosion of consumers through a different medium, and that's electric vehicles being cheaper to operate, fewer moving parts, powered by renewables that are cheaper to operate, fewer moving parts, right? There's a theme here of bringing ultimately lower prices for the consumer and commercial users. So it's going to be an economic driven event, climate change. What we don't want is we don't want insurance companies to keep raising nat cat insurance, keep raising home insurance, and businesses that are impacted by Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricanes like in Florida, right? So there's an economic consequence of doing nothing. Like there's an economic consequence of just hanging out and trying not to address this. So part of it is saying we believe that the existing supply of renewables are there. And then part of this is saying that there's more vehicles that are available today than there ever were. And those the prices of which of both the producer and consumer lens of renewables and EVs are going down, which will create, as we all know, economics. I did okay in that class. Market expansion.
Very quickly, we have a question on Zoom from Juliet asking, why did you decide on wind instead of solar energy?
That's a great question. So wind power is something that is big and it's complicated, and there's machines involved like cranes and landowners, and they're beautiful to look at. But also at the time, solar in 2005 was really expensive. So your prices on solar when you buy these facilities, I don't know if has anyone done any renewable energy internships or following any of this? Okay, so the price of solar, right, 20 years ago was like $6.73 a watt, give or take, up or down on commercial grade. And now you're sub $1, right? So I was 6 times more expensive to try to create an activity in a customer. Whereas renewables really had a product that was going to be financeable, and you could put that onto the system and be on par in places like New York State, given power rates, and be effective and have a commercial counterparty, right? Entrepreneurship is always figuring out how far are you away from that counterparty that you can service more broadly and then grow your volume. We're certainly very early with electric vehicles, but we might not be, right? And so that's the thing. You always want to be into these leap moments where people see the industry coming, put your hand up first. Say like, I'm in, let's go, let's try and do this, and sticking it out. So Julie, I appreciate your comment. The answer really is it was price based. But at the same time, it was also adventure based, where the projects I've worked on were very big and very large, and it's such a community impact that I thought it was something worthwhile to expend on while I was starting my journey.
All right, so the like the enthusiasm and the confidence in the voluntary carbon market has kind of been like tanking as of late. So as somebody in the renewable energy space, what do you think has to change within that space to kind of make it as what it could be, make it as effective as it could be?
Yeah, so is anyone doing voluntary carbon? Is there a class on that? There should be one here, because it's, voluntary carbon markets are super interesting. And the ways we had talked about, so carbon as a tracking mechanism, just think of scope 2, right? Scope 2 emissions are those direct power consumption contracts that you can make to offset, your supply if you're not directly building a power plant on your property, right? So you're making a trade. The carbon markets have had a tough time defining exactly what projects we're pointing to, right? So the visual that you see for this electric bus going into Manhattan, that is a scope 3 emission that has a carbon offset to it, right? That's electric, that you can say, hey, look, this value that we want to assign on a carbon offset metric ton is that vehicle. And so what we need to do is define a project category that says, hey, this is this project, and it looks like this, and you are getting these many tons for that physical asset. More companies are doing that. Current is doing that through the creation of a zero emission mile. We announced that earlier this week at Climate Week in New York. Zero emission mile is a cost per mile offset that customers will buy from us to say, hey, look, we can't stand up charging stations. We can't stand up vehicles. This is a great question. What's your name?
Davey.
Dave, nice to meet you. But how do we show the benefit of the carbon that you're buying to the consumer, to that person that feels like they have that emotional attachment or corporate need? So carbon has done a tough job in terms of saying what's the value of that carbon, because it feels kind of amorphous. And the way that you can kind of, make it tighter is to put it around a project.
Thank you.
No. Thank you. Keeping me humble. So my question was a little bit more about your process into getting people to believe in your, obviously, it's a lot more common now to talk about renewable energy, but 20 years ago, how did you get people on your side about investing in this process? Because I think that looking back, I can say 1 in 4 cars are electric, that's incredible. But that's the end result of the process that you were pitching. So how do you get people on your side about the process?
That's a great question. What's your name?
I'm Ava.
Ava.
Nice
We
to
met earlier. Yep. Ava. So I would say the process of enthusiasm, some of this has got to come from here. Some of this has got to speak to you, right? Like if you want to be something great, like you just got to have that kind of close your eyes and you can visualize it, get everyone to believe in it. That's a skill, but it's a skill that you can have today. I don't think I had it early on because I wasn't an engineer, right? And so how I got people to believe, like my Jamaica project, maybe I'll go back to that photo, which is, I don't know if someone can help, is there's a really good movie by Orson Welles called Citizen Kane. And Citizen Kane is a masterpiece because it introduced things that were really revolutionary at the time from a cinematography perspective. So if you go to the shipping right here, the next one, right there. I relied on others to help me find a way to get these turbines up the mountain. But people that I asked did it almost for free. They were like, well, we got to do this. And I can show you how. Because I didn't have an engineering degree, I relied on others and I brought that enthusiasm out of them. Right. So when you think about great filmmaking or things that were transformational, it was the people that were in your arena that you just said, hey, like, if there was a way, how could we do this? And they were like, I have a plan. And you're like, holy shit. Right. Like they bring you the best of what they have. And I found the best people to build this project, even when I didn't want to hear some of the answers sometimes. My business partner told me the turbines that I had won a contract. Now remember this, my wife is pregnant. I have no revenue. I am doing this on speculation. In Jamaica, I live in the city, right? I had just come off working on a bunch of projects, trying to figure out my next thing. I was in that moment where it's like, oh man, but I knew I could find a way. And I knew I had to listen to hard criticism by asking others, how can I make this project even better? And so that's how you get that enthusiasm, I think. It's a great question, Ava. It's like trying to figure out who on your team thinks they can do it better and just let them go. Like, skate them up the upside and shoot pass, score. Like that's team building. That's the excitement of what creates, I think, a championship team from a team that kind of, is in that messy middle.
Hi, my question for you specifically is like, for your specific customer base, what have you found the motivation to switch to clean energy, or reducing your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions? Is it based on economics, and like the bottom line, or is it based on regulation, or even like an intrinsic like desire to be more environmentally friendly?
Great question. So three different paths for our consumers to take. I think the good news is that our consumers can take those paths, right? They can come to us with what is that motivation and their own why, right? So we have customers that say, look, we want to deliver zero emission solutions for our drivers, right? So we have female operators who drive electric bright drops. They're delivery vans in upstate New York. They love them because they're safer and they don't smell like fuel. And they go home to their kids. Like that is a motivation as to why. There are others that say, I will make more money. That's fine too. Like I'm happy because there's less maintenance and there's less headaches. And so some of your contracting customers will say, I got 10 headaches, and I'm like, that's great. Can't solve all of them, but I can at least take 2 off your plate, right? Lower maintenance, happier team members and employees who want to stick around. Try to understand kind of what their consumer preference is. Market adoption clearly is about price. We all know this, but getting those early movers to come in now is always kind of the key to unlocking great partnerships in the future, because you were early, you were there with them, you flew through with them, and you tried to find a way. You can't solve it all, but if you get in early and build that relationship, they will turn to you and say, hey, look, not only do I have these vehicles, but I got 500 more of these things. And because we proved out unit 1 and 2, we can now tackle the other 498. That to me is the excitement. I've seen like we can solve that path for you, whichever path you're coming towards us with.
Thank you so much for coming to talk. So you mentioned going to the library and reading about different people when you were here at school. And I feel like a common thought in entrepreneurship is an entrepreneur is somebody that is technical so that they understand that side, but also business savvy, so the combination of the two. But you mentioned not being an engineer. So how do you think that impacted your journey versus if you were an engineer?
I never took myself for granted. I never thought I was better than anyone. I needed to catch up. And so I knew that I had a mountain to climb on my own. And then I had to ask a lot of questions of engineers who could do it better. And I got surrounded by the best. And they taught me. At the end of my journey in the Caribbean, I built a framework of operating charging stations that span Central America into the Caribbean. And when COVID hit, none of my colleagues in all their respective countries like Guatemala could go to work. But underneath, we had laid piping to remotely control all of our assets from an iPad. And my daughter and I looked at that screen one day, and I had become an engineering, I guess, voice and influencer. But even to this day, I know that I'm not capable enough in some of these things, and I need to learn more. And so I've always thought I can always learn more, right? I don't have the time to go back on getting an engineering degree. I need to go forward and backfill as I go. They'll call that OJT, on the job training. So if you go in and say, hey man, I want to work for you, they say, well, you don't have all those pieces. Like, yeah, but I'm going to be here on the job. I'm going to show up. We'll find a way. Like that is what your employees want to hear, or your co-founder wants to hear. Like, we will find a way together, and I will backfill on this. So it's hard. It's not easy. It's extra time and effort. If you manage your time efficiently, you can do that. But then there's other structural pieces. So as the story continues on semi-trucks, during COVID, I learned how to drive a semi-truck and got a Class A because I needed to understand the product. I needed project mastery. I needed to understand and then make sure that the people across the table from me knew that I could drive their vehicle and parallel park it too, semi-truck with a trailer or not. I needed to show them that I could do that. So there are certain things in your life that you will need to do for your counterparty to take you seriously. But you will need to go through those tasks, right? Some of that stuff is almost not negotiable, like flying a plane, right? Like, you gotta have that. So, but I think that not saying no, not waiting, just throwing yourself into that is the key to just kind of getting on that course. And all of a sudden, you can climb that curve a lot faster. I was 28 years old. I had done $500 million of wind farm development in 6 years. And like, but I hustled. I lived in a motel for 5 years in New Hampshire. And I would drive to New York City every weekend and see my now wife. That's what it took. Those are the details, right? I'm happy to share those with you all, because underneath all the fun stuff, there's the grind. The grind is good, right? The grind gives you that ballast, but never forget that there's going to be things out there that you may not be able to do, like not be an engineer. My co-founder, Dan, is an engineer, and he's been with me along the way. He's been the one that's been challenging me. I'm never afraid to ask him those hard questions like, what do you think? Right, that's the big thing for me, is that I always try to listen to the other people, even when I don't always want to. Like, listen to your parents, it's also a good thing. Sometimes you need to hear it.
Not at me. Not at you. When you describe current, you talk about scope 1, 2, and 3, and it strikes me that you can have a scope 1 business, a scope 2 business, they could be its own business. Can you talk about how the operations within current are synergistic, or maybe some of the challenges of addressing scope 1, 2, and 3 from within the same company?
Yeah, so, yeah, great question, Graham, on thinking about scope emissions, right? So scope 1 is what's in your yard, right? You're directing traffic. Scope 2 is how you're powering your yard. Scope 3 is someone else's yard, but you need their inputs to make your business run, right? So we're all in this together on scope 3 kind of thing. We handle that a couple different ways, where we do charging stations and deliver vehicles to operators. That's tough, right? That's the real work. That's the bridge, where we're dealing hand-to-hand combat in a way of saying, like, you got issues, we're trying to resolve them. We're dealing with manufacturers, both on the charging side and the vehicle side. And a lot of this is new tech, and a lot of people don't want to learn new things sometimes, but you can teach them. And one way is to be close by as a scope 1 partner. Scope 3 partner is saying, hey, we can kind of manage this from afar. We can sell you a zero emission mile credit. But you're right, there's different revenue streams to our business that allow us to be a direct player in the game, or an advisor, or power your assets. It's just trying to figure out the pieces of the steering wheel that your customer wants us to handle, right? That's the thing, is trying to understand what are the pinch points and pain points of, do you guys want to own your assets? We'll power them. Do you want us to charge your assets? Do that too. And how do you manage kind of the rest of your supply chain? And what pieces are you looking to solve from a decarbonization point of view?
We have time for maybe one more question. Yeah, that is. Question about the shirt.
Thought about the shirt. You talked about the grind and the inspiration for what keeps you going. But how did you pivot after the first defeat, after the first miss? You know, because no entrepreneurial path is perfect, you know, by any means. How did you determine what's the pivot, make it go forward?
There's gonna be a lot of roadblocks that you have to listen to, right? There's gonna be no's, and sometimes they're a hard wall. Sometimes you scale them. Sometimes there's a door and you just open the door and you walk through it. And you're like, oh, that was great. Or you just like walk around it. I think the big thing is trying to make sure that you've got a foundation of strength underneath you to kind of fly through some of that. Like, do you have the ability to kind of manage down on these assets if some things don't go your way, right? And how do you solve for that? Understanding that a lot of projects, you want them to go well and everyone wants them to do well. Certain things happen outside your control. Control is like one of those big pieces in entrepreneurship where you feel like you've got everything going your way, and then there's something that slides in front of you, and then you got to auto attack. I have been lucky in my career to have certain projects go my way, and I have always been just focused on narrowing down the probabilities of error over time. That is really success. It's thinking about, I got 500 things I got to solve here in Jamaica or in vehicle land to get project success. Some things are out of your control. You got to live with that. Sometimes you got to let other people just own those pieces of that story. And that's a hard solve. It's something that I wrestle with every day now, right? So each project that you have can be a failure, but on the overall arc and trajectory, you still want to have a successful venture. And there's a lot of different ways that you can define success. Obviously, one is revenue, EBITDA, all of that, right? Key. The other one is just operational flow and efficiency and the spirit of the team to make sure that you understand how, not me, myself, but collectively want to keep moving down this path together. Like that's a key component in kind of, I think, winning the day, as it were, without feeling like you failed, but you can acknowledge that there are projects that don't go well. And that project can be a business, it can be a person. And that's okay, but I think the hardest part is not to talk about it. Right? The things that you will see in this world is that you have to take an L and talk about it and learn from it, because it's gonna happen. But if you don't come back from it, lose. That is not the answer. You gotta come back from it, whatever it is, and acknowledge it. There will be things that are super, super hard. I guess failing wisely. I don't like the word failure at all. Really at all. Michael Jordan said, who watched the 10 episode? Right? What does he say?
In which context?
At the end, not worried about missing that shot. Shoot that shot. Right? That's it. Worry about shooting that shot. Don't worry about anything else. If something happens on a loss, you rebuild that team, you rebuild that project, come back and fight another day. You got to make sure that you're inside the context that you got enough cash and supply to keep going. Right? If you're out in the field, you got to keep hunting. So thinking about shooting that shot is what drives me. Right? I want to make that basket. Right? If there are losses, we got to understand that and move forward. There are going to be many ones along the way. There's no doubt this one super hard, and the other ones I'm working on have been super hard as well. There are things that you cannot control, but if you keep isolating down those 500 issues to one and make it a binary moment, you shoot that shot and you close it. You all have that capability in you to do that. You will get there. Remember that moment, because it's going to feel really good to do it. And people will say, God damn, how did he even do it? Right? Like, Star, she'll be here in 20 years, right? So like talking that same thing. But you got to believe on that last piece that you will make it. Because those other 499 reps that you took all make it for that one magical leap moment where people just believe. And the people in Jamaica were like, the windmill man gonna come. That's what they would say to me when I go to passport control and show up. It just didn't stop. And we got it done. And so trying to cultivate that next group of leaders like you to understand that discipline is the key. And I hope that's what you take away from this message today.
Awesome. Can we get one more massive round of applause? Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise today with us. And for everyone who's joining online, thanks for joining us today. That is it for Topping Talk. Pip, are you going to be around for a minute? We're here. Cool. If you want to have your conversations offline with Pip, go ahead and do so. If you haven't had the opportunity to check in, get those points, 400 points for Topping Talk. That's 2 things of snacks from the AI chatbot vending machine. So please make sure that you have an opportunity to check in, and we hope to see you next time here at the Hub. Thanks.